What a day of feasting, from dawn to dusk and into the dark. An extraordinary day. And this is an evening that lets us really close quietly to, after such full activity and embodied work together. And I hope that the online community has had a wonderful day as well, planting life, growing community, growing justice, staying close to the bone, not diverting. We feel you, really feel you very powerfully here. And tonight, this evening session is a real gift, especially for me, to introduce one of my closest Dharma sisters and dear friends. And Melissa, tonight, Melissa, I'm in the big hall. A year ago, you were here with us in this hall as a presenter to a beautiful presentation on the origin of the world, original instructions. And that book, we've brought a copy of Original Instructions and also Melissa's book, Traditional Ecological Knowledge, for the library. Right now, Melissa, those books are on the altar. And just a year ago, we were standing in this hall when it was rough and raw, standing while the dragon appeared and signing our names together in that corner over there by the door. And now, Melissa, we're standing here. And you're at home, you're in the Bay Area. So Melissa is joining us tonight from the heart and mind of Coast Miwok territory in the greater San Francisco Bay Area. This is a beautiful, powerful, magnificent, and fun woman. She's Anishinaabe of the highest and strongest mix, Cree, Métis, and Norwegian, the daughter of a Norwegian farmer. From the Turtle Mountain Band of the Chippewa Nation. She's a professor, too, of Indigenous Sustainability in the School of Sustainability, College of Global Futures at Arizona State University, where she loves teaching. Beloved professor, even though she's only been there since 2020. This woman is an Indigenous ecologist. She's a wonderful writer. She's a beautiful person that knows how to put together all kinds of film and she mixes everything up and puts it straight. She's what we say in the Buddhist world, an activist scholar. And she's a dynamite dancer. She'd give you a run for your money, ball players, a run for your money. She's fast on her feet and deep in her practice and in her deep work. 30 years, almost 30 years as a very young woman, taking on leadership of the Cultural Conservancy in the San Francisco Bay Area and heading up the foundation. During the pandemic, we had enough time to actually establish and look at Heron Shadow, which is an Indigenous-led native foodways farm in Sonoma County. So much to say and so much to listen to. So Melissa, with all my heart, welcome to tonight. We're going to listen to a talk and see some images of the bright spots in Native Foodways work now happening in the country and beyond the country. I also neglected to mention that with a team of other Native people, Native leaders, Melissa's involved in Indigenous-led philanthropy, making sure that philanthropy goes where it should go, to the secret places like helping establish a ball court or protecting a woman who knows how to run a beautiful, powerful museum in a kind of remote part of Santa Rosa. So this is a person, you're gonna have a lot of fun. You believe me, right? And now I'll be quiet. Melissa, we're gonna try to stop a little early, so we have half an hour with Melissa, and then a chance to interact both online and in this room, and then we'll go to sleep, a long, dark sleep. The corn is planted, the beans are planted, everything is good. And now we hear from Melissa. Thank you, everyone.
I greet you all as relatives, and I greet all the relatives that give us life today, all those beautiful seeds you planted Thank you for your service. I wish I was there with you in person. And I hope to be at that farm planting seeds and at your beautiful center again soon. Melissa Nelson, Indigene Kaz, Makunsi Gabawiki Dashnindago, Nin Anishinaabe Ikwe, Piju Dodem, Mikinakwa Jiwing, Turtle Mountain Chippewa, Nindunji Ba, Emiyu Miigwech, Mino Bimada Ziwan. That is called a traditional Ojibwe protocol greeting. I shared with you my English name, my Ojibwe name, Akunsi Gabawik. I am a proud mixed race member of the Turtle Mountain Band of Chippewa, and I'm a member of the Lynx clan. I also wished you health and well-being at this moment in your life. And thank you for taking the time to be together this evening for just a short little tour and visual overview of some of the food and farming work I've been doing with seeds and with traditional agriculture with many great teachers like the fabulous Roxanne Swensel, who many of you are so blessed to interact with and hear from today. So I will share my slides here and we'll dive into a nice little overview. I understand you've worked hard today and appreciate all your labor and hope you sleep very well tonight. I'm sure you will. So my beloved mentor friend, Wendy Johnson, asked me to talk about some of the bright spots and bright seeds and what it means to have a full basket and to fill our baskets for this Planting Life event. I want to start with some of the bright seeds and relatives that I'm very close to. I come from millennia long berry pickers. One of the names for our band, the Turtle Mountain Band, before it was the Turtle Mountain Band, we were called the Pembina Band, Pembina, North Dakota by the Red River. And Pembina is kind of an adulteration of our word for high bush cranberries. So even our name, this on the bright red berry on the right, high bush cranberries. So many native peoples of Turtle Island, North America, are berry people. In the middle here, we have my mother's favorite, the June berries, and on the left, the fabulous choke cherries, often used for jams and syrup. So we are berry people, I'm sure, as many of the folks in the pueblos I know of New Mexico are as well. So starting with these beautiful reminders of these bundles of creation that the great Chickasaw writer Linda Hogan calls seeds, bundles of creation. And so much of my work as a scholar activist has been really dedicated to honoring and recognizing our indigenous seed heritage. Seeds are so valuable not only because of our physical health and our nutritional health, but for our spiritual health. So they connect us metaphorically and literally to the seeds of our ancestors, the seeds we carry in our bodies, the seeds we share in community and plant in the warm womb of the earth. So seeds connect us deeply to the past, and they also connect us deeply to our futures and trying to regenerate a healthy and sustainable future for all life. So seeds have so much potency and value ecologically, culturally, and symbolically. Some of the seeds of our ancestors, and if we had time to hear the collective stories of your ancestors and what seeds you come from. For me as Anishinaabe, we talk a lot about manomen, the good grain, what you would know of as wild rice. And this is a very, very sacred seed to the Anishinaabe Confederacy, the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, the Potawatomi, the Menominee, all the tribes of the wonderful Great Lakes, the inland freshwater sea. So wild rice is such an important seed and grain for our people. We also know the fabulous maize of the Americas, such an important sacred grain of all the peoples of the Americas, from the tip of South America to way up almost to the taiga or the boreal forest of Canada. Acorns, such an important staple here where I am on the ancestral lands of the Coast Miwok in southern Pomo, the Ohlone across the bay, over 20 different species of oak trees in our territories, and at least half of those, 10, that produce gorgeous, delicious acorns. We know all of the rice varieties of Asia, Southeast Asia, from black to brown, so many different varieties of grains in Europe and Russia, the millets and the teffs, and so many extraordinary seeds in the African continent, the cradle of so much food and agriculture. And then we have the underground reproductive organs, or the geophytes, the underground tubers and corms, the papas, potatoes. They too are a type of seed, an underground seed. So ancestral seeds have kept our ancestors alive and thriving for generations so that they could pass on those gifts to us, these gifts of nourishment for future generations. And now they are in our hands. They're in our hands, and how will we pass them on and ensure their sanctity for future generations? That's a big part of my work and the work I do with young people deeply concerned about the seeds of their ancestors. And of course, we look at our seeds from different indigenous worldviews. We look at health and nutrition from a diversity of worldviews. There's 574 tribes just in the United States. And there are countless other tribes that are not recognized by the federal government, and dozens and hundreds of indigenous peoples around the world. But I love this saying that I learned from Dr. Greg Cajete, a Tiwa relative of Roxanne from Santa Clara Pueblo, is that we are all kernels on the same cob. So we all are relatives and descendants of beautiful Mother Earth. And so we are very diverse, as we see over here, from red and speckled, like I am white and red, to purple and black and yellows, and so many different colors, the colors of life, the rainbow of life. So it's a great reminder and metaphor also of our own human family and community. In the Apache tradition, they're chichil, or emery oak acorns, the only acorn in the world that you don't have to leach out tannic acids. You could just eat right off the tree like a pine nut. They have sustained their strong cultures for centuries, nomadic Apache traveling throughout the American Southwest, and provide life to all the lands and relatives, the birds and the animals. So they have very strong traditions around restoring this relationship with their emery oak acorn folks right now. For the Great Central Plains, the buffalo, not a seed itself, but a seed eater and a seed reproducer. The buffalo are central to Lakota culture, Blackfeet culture. They are a keystone species, and they are a matriarchal society. They are led by the females. And their hooves on the earth create healthy grasslands and redistribute seeds throughout those ecosystems of the prairies and the plains and the river valleys. As Anishinaabe, we strive for what we call Minobimadaziwan, that I shared with you at the beginning. It is, how do we live a good, healthy life in harmony with all of our relations? That is why we are here. That is the purpose of being a human for Anishinaabe. The Maya also have beautiful stories and worldviews that all beings are ultimately extensions of each other. And I cannot say the word in the Mayan language, but the translation is basically, I am you and you are me. And we are all kernels on the same cob of our Mother Earth and in this beautiful universe. So many foodways are steeped in these indigenous worldviews. And now, looking at our relationship with modern society, we know of the colonial collision and the brutal impacts of imperialism that stole lands, stole children, stole seeds, stole baskets. And yet we are still here. Indigenous people are resilient, creative, ingenious, and adaptable. And we are still here. And now we're at a time where so many non-natives want to support Native people, which finally, and want to work with Native people and repair and reconcile the relationships of the past. But often folks come together with an empty basket, right? And so when is your basket full and when is your basket empty? And how do we give and how do we receive support and solidarity with each other? I think that's a really important question. So often allies come to Native people thinking they have a full basket, but they really have an empty basket and want Native people to help them with certain issues. So if you want to be a good ally, go to Native peoples with a full basket, offer something. It's so important. The teaching I actually learned from Mayumi Oda many years ago at a women's conference of unreasonable women for the earth in a hot tub or in a hot springs. And we were talking about relationships, and says, when I really want something, when I feel really empty, I give it. I give something back. Such an important Buddhist teaching, I think, linked to food generosity and seeds. And when we talk about a full basket, we talk about kinship. We talk about our relationality with the seeds, with our foods, with the soils, with the waters. These are some incredible young Indigenous women I've been so honored to work with through the Cultural Conservancy and Arizona State University, who are really filling up their baskets with tools and strategies and knowledge and education while maintaining their strong roots and their strong indigeneity. So kinship is such a key part of these bright spots that are happening today, people building unlikely kinships across divisions. And again, I've been doing this work through the Cultural Conservancy for 30 years this year. Such an honor to serve this organization that is going to be 40 years old next year. And its mission is to preserve and revitalize Indigenous cultures, empowering them in the direct application of their knowledges and practices on ancestral lands. So we are always working to support reconnecting Indigenous peoples to ancestral lands and all of the rich relationships with the plants and the animals, the skies, the soil. And these are some of our wonderful kin who we've been serving with for decades. As dear Wendy mentioned, we were so lucky to be given the gift of land in 2019 on Coast Miwok Southern Pomo lands in Sonoma, West Sonoma County. And we asked for permission from the local tribes. We did ceremonial offerings to them, and they gave us full permission to be able to cultivate the land and share and do our work and programs there. So in just short 5 years, or a fast and furious 5 years, we have built almost all of these elements that we had planned 5 years ago to create an Indigenous biocultural heritage oasis. Too much to go into now, but you can see the place has been ultimately transformed with lots of love and labor, like you did today, planting the garden. And we've had many people come through to help with vision, and we have our own vision, and we want to listen to the local Native peoples whose ancestral lands we are on, and also to the urban Indian communities we serve in Oakland and San Francisco and San Jose and Santa Rosa. And this is a beautiful vision that was shared back with us by some of our community. We're interested in the stewardship of a sustainable landscape that is a biocultural oasis for intertribal, interspecies, and intergenerational residents and visitors that embodies the unification of art and science, the learning of practical skills, and the recognition or the reconnection with ancestral spirits. Quite a mouthful there to live up to, but we are doing our best to work with land justice movements, food sovereignty, food justice groups, health centers, restaurants, farmers markets, in solidarity economies, all through trade and gifting of our food. Last year, we gave out more than 16,000 pounds of food to about a dozen community partners. And many of these were from heirloom native seeds of rare special foods, which has been so exciting. We're cultivating the fertile soil, we're increasing community access. We're also revitalizing the native plant communities in a riparian zone with willow and sedge and elderberry, yerba buena, yerba santa, so many beautiful, lovely perennial herbs and medicines of the native landscape, and especially protecting the cultural knowledge and traditions and stories of local elders who have memories of working there on this beautiful farm. There's also a lovely Gravenstein apple orchard that we've restored, and people have long-term memories of gathering apples there. And we're really working on cultivating the next generation of sustainable food system change makers by cooperating with local schools and youth groups. These are some of my Indigenous graduate students from Arizona State University through a National Science Foundation grant, came out for 2 weeks to live at Heron Shadow and work on the land and learn about many different aspects of seed saving, cultivating, preserving, distributing, cooking, storytelling, recipe making, so many great activities with our Foodways program. And we try to do all of this, as we say, in a good way. As an intertribal organization, we honor many different traditions. We've had Quapaw farmers, Blackfeet farmers, who now a Lakota farmer, who all have slightly different traditions and methods. But we all, offer prayers to our seeds. We offer tobacco and sage. We smudge, we cleanse before we go into the field. So we try to really do this in an honorable way from our various native traditions with ceremony. And there's a wonderful new book out. I believe Dr. Lois Ellen Frank and Walter Whitewater have presented and shared it with the Upaya community recently. It's a fabulous new book if you don't know it. Seed to Plate, Soil to Sky, Modern Plant-Based Recipes using Native American ingredients. They live in Santa Fe through Red Mesa Cuisine. I helped with some of the writing and editing of the book. And it really features what Dr. Lois calls the magic 7 of native foods. And we grow corn, many varieties of corn, beans, squash, tomatoes, and chilies. We, of course, can't grow chocolate and vanilla. Oh, well, I can't say can't. We don't yet, but we may try to. So this is a lovely book. So the Cultural Conservancy is also involved with creating wonderful educational resources through videos, books, and a podcast. And then we do a lot of volunteer days and community events on the land. So really getting people's hands in the land is kind of a form of almost horticultural therapy. So helpful during the COVID pandemic and still for urban communities who don't have access to clean, healthy soil, to dig your hands in, plant seeds, and cultivate. This is a wonderful photo on the left here with Robin Wall Kimmerer, Sage LaPena, Rachel Bagby, Roxanne Swensel, and Kaylina Bray, honoring the 3 sisters at Indian Valley Organic Farm and Garden, a beautiful farm that Wendy Johnson founded and co-founded and invited the Cultural Conservancy to partner out, where we've been farming now for over a decade. So wonderful before we were able to acquire Heron Shadow and continue and expand the work on a larger area. We really see recognizing Indigenous food systems and foodways as a form of cultural affirmation. As Native people, urban, mixed race, relocated, we often carry historical trauma, internalized oppression, negative images and stereotypes from media, and still suffer from violence and discrimination. So the opportunity to work with some of our ancestral seeds and stories and medicines is a form of cultural affirmation and really a form of cultural healing. These are some Haudenosaunee women on the right, Mohawk and Oneida, working with some of their traditional seeds and corn, and another Choctaw woman on the left, cultivating some peppers and harvesting some peppers that are part of her family traditions. So it's been really a wonderful opportunity to grow our mental health as well as our physical health. And really, we operate under this whole concept of rematriation. Rematriation has really taken hold as a organizing principle for the Indigenous movement in opposition to repatriation. Rematriation resists patriarchal settler colonialism and control of land. Rematriation encourages a return of land and associated relatives to women's leadership, to women's care and stewardship. So we are rematriating seeds and lands and stories and languages from museums and vaults and seed banks and universities. Rematriation as an embodied practice of recovery and return is about revitalizing the relationship between Indigenous lands, our heritage and bodies based on Indigenous values and ways of knowing, being, and doing. And put simply, the Sogorea Te' Land Trust, where I'm honored to be a board member, we talk about rematriation as restoring a people to their rightful place in sacred relationship with ancestral lands. So it's really, there's podcasts, films, not books yet, but there's a lot of wonderful resources available around rematriation, especially of seeds. The wonderful Rowan White, Mohawk seed keeper, writes and speaks eloquently about this. I mentioned the native seed pod. We are an antidote to the monoculture. We're just finishing up a powerful episode actually talking about biomimicry with Janine Benyus, one of the founders of the biomimicry movement, and Dakota science professor Kim Tallbear. So look out for that one coming out soon. And this is some of the original artwork that we commissioned from John Jairo Valencia, who was one of our Guardians of the Waters youth interns about 5 years ago, and now a talented graphic designer, artist, illustrator, among many other talents. And I just love his whimsical illustrations that really embody the kinship we have with our seeds. And we celebrate our plantings and our harvestings, and symbolically we honor beginnings and endings with the cycle of life. I think farming and working with seeds really has so many lessons for letting things go and when they don't go well, and then composting them and working on planning for another season. So a lot of deep life lessons in the food systems. Food as medicine is a concept you'll often hear. And I think, again, some of John Jairo's illustrations of our profound spiritual connection to the underground, the mycelium, the insects, little bugs, the seeds, listening to bird song, connection to the stars, to the hummingbirds, the pollinators. So a beautiful set of images for that. And then I wanted to just end by talking about, economies of well-being. So much of the poly crisis we face today in the world is really rooted in a form of, capitalism that is so destructive to Mother Earth, to human diversity, to our well-being. And there are different forms of economies that Indigenous peoples have had for millennia. This concept of economies of well-being is very strong in Aotearoa, New Zealand. Some of our Maori relatives, Rachel Wolfram is a prominent scholar, actually working in a business school and really re-envisioning the way that we can share foods and medicines and resources with each other. And also our local Native American leader, Ojibwe leader, Winona LaDuke, has been experimenting and working on this for a long time at the White Earth Land Recovery Project at the White Earth Chippewa Reservation in Minnesota with traditionally harvesting and then selling our manome and our wild rice with political messages as well about pipelines. So there are many new economies of well-being that are emerging in grassroots levels, and the Cultural Conservancy is working on that as well throughout the Bay Area and Northern California. So some of the bright spots in regenerating our kinship, there are so many. It's exciting. I'm working on a collaborative chapter on that for the National Nature Assessment under the White House. And these are some of the top areas that we see are really bright spots in regenerating kinship with the natural world, the indigenous land back and land rematriation movements, regenerative agriculture and the food sovereignty. And again, the whole concepts of rematriation, regeneration in the sciences and in many different fields, the strong and powerful environmental justice movements in urban and rural areas to continue to fight toxic colonialism, the pollution of lands and peoples, and then the really strong support of indigenous sciences and conservation from the Pope to the president, supporting it in theory. And now we have to continue to support it and fund it in practice with indigenous-led land back and conservation. Again, the new solidarity economies that are really emerging with just transitions and so many grassroots examples. I just heard some extraordinary youth climate justice activists from the Philippines and from the Arctic. So there's a really thriving and powerful movement there. The area of decolonizing philanthropy, and really that's a form of rematriation as well, returning wealth, wealth taken in unjust ways back to people and to communities that have suffered at the face of such extraction. So that's a really important movement, also known as indigenous-led philanthropy. And all of this is really moving towards greater reckoning of the past with reparations and reconciliation, and returning to ceremonial activities that really bridge the artificial divide between humans and nature. So with that little overview, my dear friends, thank you for listening. And I think I'm at my 30 minutes. And I know you've had a long day of planting, and I welcome your questions and comments, and gratitude to you for being here. Chimigwich. There's some contact info, how to reach me, and some of the links I mentioned, Native Land, Native Seed Pods, Sigorte Land Trust, and at ASU, the Sweetie Center for Sustainable Food Systems. So I'll share this with Upaya, so if you don't have to write it all down now if you don't.
Thank you.
And Miigwech. And then thanks to my beloved husband, Colin Farish, who is a much better Buddhist than I am, in terms of the meditation. He wanted to send this. He calls me a hummingbird and himself a barnacle. And and so here is the hummingbird, and I also honored the barnacle. I find the stillness in movement, and he finds the movement in stillness, and maybe I'll meet in the middle. So
Thank you so much, Melissa. And a huge amount of love from Roxanne and Porter back to you. Thank you very much. So let's begin in this room. We've had such a full day, but anything that you would like to either ask or just reflect, anything at all. And if you would ground yourself, just let Melissa know where you're coming from.
Hi, I'm Missy. I'm a Brazilian Canadian. In Canada, we use the term truth and reconciliation. And you use the term reparation and reconciliation. Can you talk a little bit about how you see the connection between the use of the two expressions?
yes, thank you. What a great question. I mean, from South Africa, Canada, so many places. And I know that the beautiful Deb Haaland, our recent Secretary of Interior from down the road there at Laguna Pueblo, she is working on getting a Truth and Reconciliation Commission together through the US government. And that's a big battle, especially during a election year. But we absolutely need a truth and reconciliation process in the United States. That has not formed. Yes, thank you. I see someone clapping here online. That has not happened yet. When you mention boarding schools here, people think of, wealthy prep schools for wealthy kids to get into, Harvard or Stanford or something. But, up in Canada, you've gone through a formal, official truth and reconciliation process, and there's a much deeper understanding about the historic harms that the Canadian government and colonialism had on First Nations. We're not quite there yet in the US, but there is more of a discussion about reparations. Interestingly, especially because of slavery and the horrible history of slavery, that is still another kind of area that needs repair in the United States. So I completely support truth and reconciliation. But I think the concepts of, reparations and repair are very important because honestly, in the United States, I'm not sure if the US government will ever get there. So I support a voluntary reparations, like voluntary tax. The Segurite Land Trust created this beautiful voluntary tax. They said, hey, we're Native people. Our ancestors are buried here over 10,000 years. We are not a federally recognized tribe. You're living free off of our land. If you want to give something, we struggle with poverty and social problems. If you want to give something back to the First Peoples, we welcome that. And it really is a groundswell now, and indigenous groups all around the US are doing that and offering these kind of voluntary reparations. And people are giving their homes, bequeathing their property, their farms. So I think we're in two different historical political processes in the US and Canada. Ultimately, we need truth and reconciliation at that national level to really create a critical consciousness nationally in a dialogue. Up in Canada, every day you see on the news First Nations, Inuit, Métis stories. It's starting to happen now, just since 2016, since Standing Rock, but it's still often in the margins here in the United States. So thank you for that great question.
Melissa, your mention of Segurite Land Trust makes me eager to hear you just offer the community the exciting story of what happened with Segurite Land Trust and the return to land.
Yes, yes. So
huge story, everyone.
yeah, Segurite Land Trust is the first Indigenous women urban native land trust in the world that we know of. And because we're in support of the Ohlone people of the Bay Area who have no land, no recognition. And they do, though, have archaeological sites all around the bay, shell mounds, historic shell mounds. Any indigenous people or traditional people who live along the coast pre-colonial times would gather up their shells in these kind of ceremonial mounds that were used as landmarks, as burial sites, ceremonial sites. They were not garbage sites, as many anthropologists and archaeologists unfortunately labeled them. And there was one massive one in West Berkeley, or there is one, that was being threatened by a high-rise apartment complex that would obliterate it. And so it's been about a decade-year battle, both legally, public protest, letter writing, led by the wonderful Karina Gould, the co-founder of Segurite Land Trust and the chairwoman of the Confederated Villages of Lishawn, the tribal organization of their people there in the East Bay, Oakland, Berkeley area. And so after a decade of struggle, we basically were able to raise the funds from a few very generous donors and foundations. The Katali Foundation, in particular, donated a massive amount of money to have to buy back, sadly unjust, but had to buy back the 2.2 acres of this sacred ceremonial site that contains ancestral burial grounds, probably lots of artifacts. And so now that has been returned to Native hands. It's a rare victory of an urban sacred site being restored to the First People. Yes, so it's called the West Berkeley Shell Mound. There's lots of videos about it and press about it about a month and a half ago. So we are thrilled. Yeah, we are thrilled.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe one more comment from the floor, and then we'll reach out to the wider community and just close the long day. Any other offering?
I have someone online here too.
Good. Let's do that.
Okay, Patricia, looks like online.
Hello, I'm so happy to see you again. I was there last year and
Oh,
really appreciated the connection and your very broad kind of understanding of how these issues are connected. I do have a question, which is I wonder if you could talk a little about decolonizing philanthropy.
yes, that's a big one. Thank you for asking. Well, how to do that quickly in the end of a
Right.
long day. I can, did you get my email down? I can send you some resources, but basically, a lot of foundations, I mean, I've seen transformation happen in the last decade, huge transformation. But before that, most funds and foundations were led by, wealthy white families, often sometimes hiring people of color to help with advising, but very much white institutions with a lot of power, a lot of privilege, and kind of wielding grants in a very top-down way. You know, they had to be really scrutinized and they had to be very focused and submit these lengthy plans ahead of time. And now giving more general support to indigenous-led organizations and trusting, it's often called trust-based philanthropy, trusting indigenous peoples and communities of color and poor communities. We know how to best solve our solutions and that we should just be given resources to work together and build our communities from the inside out rather than having these top-down solutions come in from outside. We're open always to solutions and ideas, but really to not have that kind of paternalism that is expressed in a lot of historical conventional philanthropy. Yeah, so combating patriarchy, racism, and really paternalism, over control. And then you flip to the other side, and then there's kind of the white savior complex that wants to kind of like save the, you poor people, you poor Indians at the reservation. So that's also part of that same mindset that needs to be transformed and composted, right? And so some humility and also some generosity and some trust, in really redistributing resources back to communities whose ancestors suffered from slavery, land theft, mining, all of those different activities that created the accumulation of wealth so that people had to give it away a little bit, 5%, away for good causes. So it's a complex issue, but I hope that made sense.
Yes, it did. I thought
Good.
that was very helpful. Yes, I
Okay,
got it.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else from the online community, from the cloud
Yes,
community?
Donna here, it looks like. Donna Estes or Estes. Yeah.
Yes, I read something today somewheres that there's some talk or movement about giving the national parks back to native indigenous people. Could you talk about that, please?
Yes, well, every national park is native land, every single one, from Yosemite to Yellowstone, Bandelier, obviously all the different national monuments and national parks were often villages, homelands, sacred sites, hunting grounds to indigenous peoples of Turtle Island. And so, nowadays, the public funds for the management of national parks is getting really, really tight, and indigenous peoples are really asserting their sovereignty to reclaim and have a relationship with hunting grounds, sacred sites in national parks. And with Deb Haaland as the Secretary of the Interior, a Native woman, she knows how important this is. And so Bears Ears National Monument in southern Utah is a kind of a classic example of, you know, where this could go depending on the administration. It falls pretty clearly on Democrat, Republican, with, you know, Obama really returning management of this, turning it into a national park, returning management to 5 local tribes. Then the former President Trump taking all that back and opening it up for mining and those kinds of extractive activities. Then Biden kind of giving it back to the tribes. So it's going to be up to the election, really, if that really happens, or it will be up to Native nations asserting their sovereignty and just kind of starting to reclaim some of these places. But for example, Devil's Tower, Wyoming, terrible name for it. Matotipila, the House of the Bear, very sacred site to all the Northern Plains tribes. If anyone's ever been there, it was popularized in, you know, what Close Encounters of the Third Kind as an alien landing ship. But it's a very sacred mountain to many tribes. And the Lakota there, you know, asked for just 1 month of January this month to pray there and conduct their ceremonies there, but they can't do it because it's a national park and it would be showing preference to one religion or group over others. And so it's very, very sad that so many Native peoples have been cut off from their ancestral places and national parks. But hopefully that is changing, Donna. So thank you for asking that question. And if you see letters around it, sign petitions, you know, be aware of it, have these conversations. Yeah.
We'll ask for maybe one more friend from the wider community to ask a question or to offer some insight, and then invite Alonzo to come up and we can close together for this evening. So is there someone else in the cloud community who would like to make an offering? And if not, we'll come into this core community right here. Please. Maybe they'll come on simultaneously.
Thank you so much for the offering this evening to us. I have such a simple question. A few months ago, Secretary Deb Haaland was doing a listening tour, and I wanted to attend, but I couldn't find anywhere if it was appropriate to come, if it was a time for Secretary Haaland to hear from Native peoples only, or if the wider community, if it was appropriate, if it would be welcome, if it would be helpful for the wider community to attend.
Yes, thank you for the question. I have not attended any of her listening sessions. I was actually, I think, in the Southwest when she was in California and vice versa. I do think they are primarily for Native peoples. And the one I know she's been really focused on is a boarding school healing project to try to work towards a truth and reconciliation process, and for Native peoples to feel safe to tell some of those stories that sometimes they've held their whole lives. It's usually better that it is, Natives only in those sessions. But I'm actually not sure how they were run. But I would say it's best that those stories initially are done in private, confidential listening sessions, and then once they do the larger truth and reconciliation process, those are often really public, almost like testimonials, and where witnessing is very important. So thank you for asking that. Oop, can't hear Wendy.
I think we can share it. Yeah, we'll get close. It's disorienting to have Melissa at our back, but I feel her at my back. And I feel you everywhere, and wanted to let you know that today, corn from the Quapaw revitalization and Oneo and beautiful other gifts from Heron Shadow were transferred warm hand to Roxanne with a huge gratitude for her to share in her community. And that revitalization and rematriation is happening on a very vibrant and deep level. And especially today, after a full day, Melissa, from 6 in the morning until now, almost 9 o'clock at night, to be together, opening the earth, listening to the song of the ground and the stars coming down. You've been with us very deeply, as have had all of our ancestors, both young and older. So just to acknowledge how meaningful it is to have you close this evening with a kind of dedication of merit. And I just want to pass the microphone to Alonzo, with whom we worked together last year, and have his closing words, and then we'll end with chanting and go to rest for the evening. So.
Thank you, Melissa. It's so great to hear your voice again. The truths and all of the courage that you share for the work that you're doing. We are grateful for just being in the presence and being able to witness some of the courage that has taken and has been expressed by Roxanne, by yourself, by Wendy, and all of you as well. All of you who have joined us. We're all part of the same clan. We're working for the same goals and striving to make this world a better place, a place that is healing, a place that is nourishing, full of kinship, as you remember. So we just want to thank each and every one of you for being here, being present, and we wish you so much courage in these next steps that are taking forward.
So we dedicate the merit of today's planting to the courageous commitment to plant life in precarious times, and the absolute assurance that all beings in the 10 directions are in cooperation when we both settle ourselves firmly on the earth, feel the groundedness and the transferal of intention from the barnacle to the hummingbird, from barking Jaya to the tiniest little egg of a louse, and to all of the dark, magnificent web makers, sense makers of the decomposing world. May all of our suffering and confusion and misalignment be recombined in this web work and serve as nourishment for a full and thriving world. And may we do it together, all relatives, all friends, all in communion and kinship in the kingdom of this Saha world. So thank you, everyone, for your practice. And it is traditional to close with the chanting of the vows. So I don't know if we'll have a bell with that, but let's do. Good.
Let me respectfully remind you, life and death are of supreme importance. Time passes swiftly and opportunity is lost. Let us awaken, awaken, take heed. Do not squander your life.
Thank you, Melissa. This is Roshi and Matzo, Vanilla, and everyone.
She's trying to hear you.
Say what?
She's trying to hear you.
Oh, I don't have anything significant to say. Except thanks. But just one thing, the schedule tomorrow, 7 dates, and 8 o'clock breakfast, 9 o'clock we gather. And for the online community, 11 o'clock final council, just for the online people, and then 12:30 lunch. Thank you, everybody, so much. See you in the morning.
Good night.